All right. Let me move over. We are live. So this is the first time we've actually done a live stream, and so please bear with us if we fumble about a little bit. I'm the one behind the controls here, so if you see me kind of looking off to the side, I'm not distracted or anything. I'm going to be checking the comments, making sure the live stream's going good and everything. Um, so tonight we have Brandon. Brendan. I don't know why I call him Brandon. We have Brendan in the house.
It's okay.
Okay.
He's used to it.
My Gen Y buddy. We have Aaron, the bearded tribalist, returning once again. And we have a special guest, Derek. He's joining us tonight. So, in celebration. So, I'm hoping. Well, let me see if I have to turn this. Let me try to do a comment. Hey, everyone. Oops. Let me try to spell here. And oh, we got Devo chimed in already. Thanks for joining, Devo. Let's see. Think of us a little. Here, let's try this little trick here. Boom. We could put up people's comments. All right, so let me hide that.
That's cool.
And let's see who else we got here. Brent. Oh, here we go. Bam. All right. So can everyone see all the comments? Give me a thumbs up. All right. Cool. All right.
I saw the comments earlier.
You got a time delay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we were supposed to start at 7:30 on the dot. We started probably a good 30 seconds, 45 seconds after. So tonight, we're going to experiment with the live show. I'm keeping a little bit loose on the topics. I have no idea how many people are going to join us tonight. I did post it out on, let's see, Bonsai Prepping's Facebook group, the Tampa Bay Prepping 101, Florida Preppers, Central Preppers, Ready Men Florida. If you guys are not familiar with that Facebook group, it's geared towards, there's a National Ready Men's Facebook group, which is geared towards, what you call it? The series of books that the Homestead movie was based on. So it's kind of like a fan-esque kind of Facebook group, but they have different chapters for each state. So I'm in Ready Men, the national one, and in the Florida one. Hey, welcome, Sam. Let's see. Give a little shout out to Sam Davis. Sam, check out what hat I've been wearing the last two shows, trying to represent. For you that don't know, normally I wear a John Deere hat, which is my favorite favorite hat overall in my stash. But this hat here is from the Florida Prepping Group or Barter Group. They kind of go by two different names. I love the colors. It happens to represent the West Coast of Florida section. There's multiple sections throughout the state. There is an East Coast one. I forgot what the colors are for those. I'll have to get all the colors from Sam so I can talk about them. So, because they do events all across the state and everything. So they got hats and a couple other bits of swag. One day we will do some swag. I think a hat is a good idea, possibly. I definitely got to try to do a sweatshirt so I could, not have to wear this black sweatshirt all the time.
You mean for both of our cold days that we get every year in Florida?
Yes.
Yeah.
Make the most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like, if anybody was wondering, well, why does Dominic always wear a hat? And why does Dominic wear that same sweatshirt all the time? Well, I was kind of trying to follow the lead of Tim Pool. If any of you guys have ever followed him, he's wore a beanie for every podcast he's ever been on. I don't think I've ever seen him without a beanie. Little black beanie. Seems to be his shtick. And I'm like, I kind of like that, but I don't want to wear a beanie. But I like wearing cool hats and stuff. So maybe turn that off. There we go. So, try to, make it a little unique and stuff. But I would really love to get some swag. Sweatshirt with some nice like white or colored lettering here, so it represents, on the screen nice. Change up the hats and everything. What about you guys? What do you think? There's swag for all kinds of different things, gun gear, hiking, all kinds of stuff. Everyone's got, patches and stickers and hats and t-shirts and stuff like that.
What about wigs for us bald guys? It's like a soul right here. You know what I mean? If it hits just right, man, all the viewers are going to be blinded.
Well, I think my daughters might have an idea. Maybe putting some henna tattoo on your balls.
Yeah, there you go. There
you go. We might have to get Brendan Jr. to take some crayons and sketch something on there.
Him was a good time.
So when we went to the Hap Summit a few years ago, they were passing out drawstring bags as merch. And
yeah. Those little
ended up gathering a couple of pieces. Those have been great at the house. I like hats. I collect hats. I have a whole wall of hats in my room, but I never wear them.
Yeah.
So like the drawstring bags to me, that's super useful. I use those all the time, even if it's just like throw a couple of pairs of clothes in it for an overnight bag or whatever, just something to throw in real quick. And
that's a good word. Yeah.
Very cool.
Great, man. Yeah.
I want to give a little shout out to my friend Ruth. She joined us tonight. I'm always talking about the show to her at work and everything, and told her one day we'd get a live stream going, and bam, she joined. So got to do some little extra special at work, make her computer a little faster or something. Who knows? Oh, man. All right. Sorry, I got all these windows just keep popping up and everything. I don't know why. But, Aaron, what do you think are some good swag ideas?
I've actually liked a lot of the koozies I've gotten over the years. And the insulated cups, just those, like, the steel tumblers that they sell. I mean, I'm cheap. I know everything's based on the Yeti, but I just buy the Walmart version.
Yeah.
For $12, I found it functions just as well as the $50 one. But those are pretty cool. I mean, you can get those engraved or get a logo, painted on them. But I'm constantly using all of those things. I mean, if it was up to me, we wouldn't have regular glasses in the house. They would just all be insulated tumblers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not up to me.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's these like stainless steel tumblers that my daughters always want to buy every variation of. Stanleys, that's what they're called.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And God, I remember for Christmas last year, one of my daughters, she wanted one for Olivia Rodrigo, man. And I had to scour the internet to find one of those. And normally I would give her a hard time about it. But let me tell you, that girl drinks water every day because she has that Stanley. So that was probably the best investment in a Stanley that I've ever made. But yeah. So what are some, I'm trying to think here. I remember Short Arms came to an activity and he brought a bunch of Glock swag, and I think he had some like keychains in there, some pens. Oh, the keychain was like a little plastic Glock and stuff like that.
I mean, stickers too. Stickers are cool. I put them on gun safes, on name it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see this, but that's some Glock-based swag. A buddy of mine printed me up for a 3D printer. It's a pencil holder.
That's pretty
cool.
That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
he's just.
I'm sorry, guys. I keep getting this pop up for. Do you want to disable some toggle hotkey thing? I don't know what it is, but I'm trying to get rid of that. And it keeps popping up. All right. So, what is some swag that you just thought was like, my God, the biggest waste? I can't believe that they ever gave this stuff away.
I'd say the people that spend a lot of money on the paper on their business cards. That always makes me think of that. I mean, I've got tons of business cards that I end up with as pocket trash.
Yeah.
And even with the really nice ones, like I've seen guys get this stuff printed out on metal. And I'm like, man, this is going to end up in somebody's junk drawer at best. It's just going to get round filed at worst.
Yeah.
But it always reminds me of that scene in the movie American Psycho where he's going up over and over about the guys like, the cream and all the colors on his business card. It was that was stupid to me.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that business cards are still a thing now, because QR codes is very popular. So, I mean, there is some function for some business cards, especially if you're a business guy. A couple of you guys are in the trades or services and stuff. So, giving a card out with your QR code, or giving a couple to a friend, or dropping them at a business or something like that, that makes sense.
Well, even then, like if I'm talking with a customer, if I want to like drop a stack of business cards at a location, if I'm at a lumber yard or whatever, I do that. But as far as like talking with customers, 90% of the time the customer just wants to take a picture of the business card so they can text it to their friends. So very rarely I'll hand somebody 10 cards, they'll immediately hand me 9 back and go snap, and that's it.
Yeah,
it's so much easier.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's see here. Oh, we got Alex, the gutter man, is in the house.
What's up, Alex?
Yeah, I know Alex was supposed to go on vacation to Puerto Rico. I don't know if he's there now or he's coming back. If you're there, Alex, I hope you're having a good time, buddy. Thanks for joining in.
So this is kind of a first world problem thing for me, but those pens that have the stylus rubber piece on the end,
I've noticed
they
those
are junk.
Yeah.
Cannot stand those, man. They fall apart. The rubber just breaks. There's no point in it. I mean, cheap pens in general.
Oh, yeah. Well, I noticed a lady at work, because they transitioned some of our service techs to using iPads. It's going to go a little bit more paperless.
Mm-hmm.
And I know she was trying to, make updates in the iPad using that, and seemed like she's kind of struggling and stuff. And when I saw these out and about, because I ended up getting an iPad after her, and then everybody's like, no, they're garbage, don't even mess around with them.
They're difficult in a business setting.
Yeah. Let's see here.
We had to go. We had iPads at one point in our manufacturing plant. We went all Surface Pros because they have the foldable keyboards, because people just couldn't use the iPad keyboard with the stylus. It was just an absolute nightmare.
Oh man, yeah. Have you guys been to any of the nicer trade shows? Like Hamcation, was it Hamcation? Not our normal gun shows here. Which, I'll save my comments for myself about those. Yeah. But any of the nicer trade shows where you see some really cool swag, or just something like the innovations at the big things. Do you guys go to any of that stuff for work, or I
go to cybersecurity conferences, and the swag there is definitely unique. Laptop stickers, laptop webcam hiders, sliders, if you will. Socks, believe it or not, is a thing in the IT world. Don't know why, but socks are cool.
Hey, good socks are important, man.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're laughing here, but here's an interesting thing. So the number one item, that I've seen with various nonprofit organizations or activities for kids to go and help during the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, to help homeless and stuff like that. Socks are like the most wanted thing, from the people that are kind of down on their luck. Mm-hmm. So for it to be there, so it's more than just, like the trade shows. Who doesn't want a cool pair of socks? I see all kinds. I don't get to dress like I did when I was in corporate IT, because now it's more business casual. But there was always guys that were trying to wear, different, what's the word I'm looking here for? More noticeable shoes, or, Argyle socks or something, to stand out,
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I'm like, those things aren't hemmed appropriately. I'm seeing too much of your sock, I know we don't all fit the standard 36-32 or 34-30 or whatever, but dude, go spend the $10 and hem your pants. Um, let's see here. All right, yeah. All right, so Alex is in Puerto Rico. Very cool. Yeah, he said he uses QR codes and digital cards, and Sam too. Not interesting. This is, have all you guys met Sam? I don't know if you have, Derek. Derek, did you go to the last activity?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The chainsaw one? Yeah.
No.
Oh no.
Oh,
We had a DIY solar one.
What?
Yeah, a couple weekends ago.
Oh, I'm sorry I missed that, man. I did not see that. I did get your message about the medical one. So the 27th. Definitely
cool.
try and be there. Definitely.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know, like maybe month and a half back, 2 months ago. Sam, he's one of the, I guess, co-coordinators of the Florida Barding Hub and Prepping Hub for Florida, and he was talking about coming to that chainsaw activity. I think that was the one, but he couldn't make that one, and he gave me information for an activity they were having the following weekend, and they were doing some medicinal kind of thing, and some other food related thing. It was kind of cool. So me, Devo, Nancy, a bunch of us went over to his partner Cindy's property, and there was a whole bunch of people from his group there, and so it was a nice little setup. Learned some interesting things. So we, co-coordinated this last activity, and where we did a DIY solar generator, which Sam was the SME, the subject matter expert for that.
That's
and
awesome.
Then Cindy did another medical tincture activity right after that. So we made a medical solve. Man, I usually have it around for show and tell, but that was pretty neat. Got it in a little tin can. She gave us all tin cans, and they did some of the precursors, and we mixed it all up, and adding hot water and spin it, and then all of a sudden it started gelling out. It was really cool.
Dang, I would have liked to have seen that. That's awesome. That's awesome. That a lot of that needs to come back. Honestly, the herbal medicine, if you will, but like legitimately, like, hey, this isn't just essential oils and it'll fix your gut problem, but like actual like, hey man, I've got cuts, I've got bruises, infections. How do you treat that stuff with things you find outdoors?
Yeah,
I think
awesome. I've never been into the. It's interesting, but it's never been my shtick per se. There's just too many pillars in preparedness for me to sit there and be interested at the same level for all of them.
Yeah.
But I do respect its importance. So I was asking somebody at there, one of the nurses there, about it being, so because we have all this pharmaceutical stuff, but then we have the herbal stuff, and everything had to start with the herbal stuff. And they say, a lot of the stuff, it works. It just takes longer. So what's happened is the pharmaceutical companies have taken the basis from the herbal stuff and added all kinds of poison. They didn't say poison. I'm saying poisons.
Yeah. Oh, we know.
Okay. Well, a lot of the times it's the herbal stuff will have whatever ingredient it is, and then the pharmaceutical is just the ingredient in the raw. So for instance, like white willow bark is like 30% aspirin or something like that. So eventually they just quit doing crushed or ground white willow bark and then just giving you straight aspirin, So it's the same concepts, just like it's like with the oso seed, what I'm always telling people about with bitter melon. The reason it works so great for when you have a flu or a cold is because it's just got insane amounts of vitamin C and K in it. And so it's essentially the same as like hitting a Theraflu packet or something like that, just because of the levels of vitamin C that are in it.
Just without the fake red dyes and all that other stuff.
Red 40.
Yeah.
Blue Lake #1.
It's not medicine without some sort of petroleum product in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sam and Cindy were great resources, and the people from their crew and everything. So then we co-partnered, and we had a great event. You know, so and the reason I was giving you all that background is earlier in June, before I went on vacation with my kids, we did a whole series of videos during a week with various coordinators from different either Facebook groups that focus on preparedness or people that do networks or mags and stuff like that. So Sam was one of those people. Cindy got on there with him, and we had Devo, because we do a lot of stuff up at her ranch. But we also had Rob from the Florida Brotherhood of Preppers. He runs a Facebook group that goes all across Florida. Sam's is all across Florida. And then we had Scott. He has a mag over in Brevard County. And those guys seem pretty solid, very up on communications, hitting all the pillars and stuff like that. So that was one of my goals or dreams when I wanted to do the podcast, is I wanted to have an additional means to connect with other coordinators to help other people connect. So for years now, when I'm trying to promote events, if there's somebody that's like outside of the area, I try to connect them with other people in the area. I've had some success, but not as much as I'd like. So I figured, hey, with the podcast, it might be a little bit easier. And then connecting with other coordinators, that, just another step, another layer, and then we'll do some more podcasts with those people ongoing. And then we'd like to do a couple of regional activities. Because I know Sam already has some experience doing that, because he has people all over the state. They've had stuff in Jacksonville, down in Sarasota and Manatee. So those are some of the cool things that, we're looking forward to do, let's see, let's check the chat. Okay.
So I don't know if you saw it just recently there, Dominic. I sent you a link to a book by a guy named Sam Kaufman called The Herbal Medic. And he's actually really experienced. He's running a group that does humanitarian aid relief stuff to affect the areas. But one of the interesting, yeah.
Good.
Have you ever listened to any of the interviews with him?
I don't think so. No.
So, I listened to one on. It's not putting out new episodes anymore, but you can still find it called. I think it was the Urban Survival Podcast, but they had an interview with him, and he was talking about his Human Path organization, and he kind of set everybody up into different skill sets. So you'd have like the medic, the scout, or I think it was like healer and scout. It was a little hippy dippy, some of the stuff, but he was talking about going into really hard hit areas in like the Appalachians and teaching them how to use the herbs that grew locally to solve the problems like trichinosis or Giardia cysts from impure drinking water. And it was really fascinating because he was talking about the difference between the traditional, or what's become the mainstream medical approach, and his people's approach. And he was saying that one of the big things they do is, rather than having like one pill that just deals with an issue, they might have a battery of 20 different herbs, and they might mix those together based on things that they're observing and diagnosing for the patient they're working for, because not everybody is going to respond the same to every one of those herbs, and not everybody's going to respond the same to mixtures of those herbs. So it was really more like a sciencey approach than a lot of the other people that I've talked to about, herbal stuff, where it's like they want to align my chakras and talk to me about, their awesome new shiny rock that they bought that's called a crystal, which is why they spent so much freaking money on it.
They can feel the energy.
Yeah. So I've dealt with a lot of that being in massage, but I always kind of perk up when you see somebody who's really really good at what they do and can kind of break it down in a way that makes sense and be objective and say, no, this works. Here's how to determine when it's working,
Yeah.
So,
I have to check out that book. And I'm glad you mentioned that they were trying to do stuff in the local area, which I think is important, and then also the fact that, they're trying to gauge it to the person. I wonder if people that are into the herbal medicine run into problems where either A, they can't grow some of the key herbs in their climate, or if it's considered an invasive species, or draws.
That is a big thing.
So like one of the ones you see a lot about is like mullein. There's a bunch of uses for mullein. Mullein doesn't grow great in our area. It's just too hot. It prefers a cooler climate. I think it might grow in northern Florida, but I've never seen it wild around here. I don't think it grows down here, but that's one of like the staple herbs that people are always talking about. And then in the vice versa, like the Assocea and the Cerasea, you're not getting that much north of where I live. It does not grow up there. So most people have never heard of it because it's a Caribbean plant. It's like realistically only islanders use it because that's where it's at. It's not prolific around everywhere else. You see things like the wild lettuce, the opium lettuce, a lot of people call it. It's can be popular here and like in the southeast. Doesn't grow super prolific out west, but dandelion's in the same family, and people use dandelion for the same things. It's both in that Latuca family, So it's one of those things that regional stuff can definitely be a thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I remember a couple of years ago, a buddy of mine that I used to hang out with, and he's a lineman now. He was, working on, telephone poles, electrical poles, and all that stuff. And I remember he was sharing a story at one of our activities where he went into the backyard and saw some mangoes. Okay, there was a mango tree back there or whatever. So he started eating them, but, he didn't peel it and then eat it. He was biting it like you would do an apple.
Did he get it?
Yes, and it happened multiple times. And when he figured it out, is that the mango's in the poison oak family, maybe?
Poison sumac.
Poison sumac. And that just blew my mind because I never would have equated that.
So there is a frightening number of ways to cure constipation when you get into like locally grown herbs. Like they really do terrify me. That's why I like most of my food to be 4-legged and preferably about medium rare, with a nice little salt and pepper crust on it.
Yeah. So there's a couple of fruit trees that the skin of the fruit will do that. With star fruit, same thing. You eat 2 or 3 star fruit back to back, your mouth will go numb. There's also a chemical in it, and I can't remember what it is, but if you have any kind of kidney problems at all, and you eat a star fruit, it will shut your kidneys down, and it will kill you.
Oh my gosh!
Which I never knew that, and I'm at a customer's house, and I'm tearing up the star fruit tree in her front yard, and she comes out and like, "Hey, do you have any kidney problems?" I was like, "That's a weird question to ask." And she breaks it down that she's been in the medical field, and she was mad because she did have kidney problems and she could no longer eat from her starfruit tree.
Oh my god!
And so she's like, "Have as much as you want." And that's how I learned that if you eat 4 of them, your mouth goes numb. Because I was like, I was told to eat as much as I want. So
hey, good for dental work, right? Good for impromptu dental work.
Yeah. Now, after that 4th one, your mouth starts to tingle. I was like, "Do I have kidney problems?"
No. Yeah. Oh man. Well, I've always wondered, like, how do people know what herb is, can do this thing medicinally and versus the other one being poisonous, other than trial and error? But it's like, how did over time did they figure all these things out? Were they just like gnawing on it because we're like hunter and gatherers, and okay, this one makes me feel high or numb or.
Well, if you look back to, any society who had any kind of written word, right? Just even something as simple, so like, trying to figure out how to put my train of thought into words. But yeah, I think a lot of it's trial and error, and just also you get cultures who don't have all the distractions we have.
Yeah.
So they're much more cognizant of the world around them. For instance, so like, even biblically speaking, they could identify ruminant animals with a 4-chambered stomach digestive tract just by watching their behaviors and watching them, as the biblical speak, chew the cud.
Okay.
Because, hey, you've got nothing to do but stare at sheep for 12 hours. Hey, why do sheep randomly lay down and just start chewing when they haven't eaten in 2 hours? Hey, cows do that too. Hey, goats do that too. Wait, that's weird. Pigs don't do that. This animal doesn't do that. Yeah. And they realize that, hey, these animals must have a different digestive tract than all the other animals. And it was just simple observation. Again, you spend 12 hours, staring at the same animals. You think of cultures pre-industrialization. The extent of how far you go is your feet. So if your entire life you spend within a 20-mile diameter, you're going to know every plant within that 20-mile diameter. Yeah. And eventually you're going to put every plant in your mouth. And it's going to be like, hey, I had a flu, I ate that plant, and then I didn't have a flu anymore. Or, hey, Bob ate that plant, and then he saw God. And then Jim ate that plant, and then, got dysentery.
Yeah.
That's something that you're not going to make that mistake twice.
Yeah.
If you're in that situation. For us, we eat something bad, we get sick, we hug the toilet for a day, and then we're fine. In a culture that there are no antibiotics, you don't typically have access to clean drinking water, you don't have hydration salts, you don't have Gatorade to bounce you back. It's like they eat something wrong, there's big boy consequences.
Yeah, dead from diarrhea. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like you learn, you pay attention to what does what.
Well, that brings up a good point, because most people don't leave their immediate proximity very often, maybe for looking for food if you're hunting or whatever. But I wonder how much people actually stick to trails or create trails, So someone's, as they're venturing out from their village center to go explore, do they go a certain direction, a certain distance, and then come back? Is that just based on, well, we don't have any food with us, so let's go back, or we got to do these chores? But, they start developing trails, but I wonder how much of that changes the topography. And I bring this up because, Brendan, in the early days, we used to go on those hikes and stuff, and it was very popular for looking for edibles. So I'm wondering how much the edibles get impacted by our movement patterns versus our movement patterns following, the edibles per se.
So I know there's a book called American Buffalo, and it's a search for a lost icon. It's by Steve Ranella. It's a great book. And it kind of does this bouncing thing where half the story takes place during a modern bison hunt, and then the other half of the story is the taxonomical history of the bison. And they talk about, in some parts of it, that you could identify camps, Native American camps, on the patterns of the buffalo. So they would figure out, hey, in the summer, all the camps are down in the valley. In the winter, all the camps are up on top of the hill. and they couldn't quite figure it out. Like, it just didn't make any sense to the scientists or archaeologists who were doing the research. Like, why would they be up on top of the hill in the winter? You know, the animals aren't running up into this, you know, rocky cliff. And then one of the guys who was a hunter pointed out, was like, you want the high ground to see where the animals are first off. And also don't want to, like, because it was a river cutting through this valley. So they were using pretty much camping on cliff faces to see, okay, where is everything drinking? Because they're not around in the winter. You know, they're much more scarce. Because, you know, less grazing opportunities, so more animals die off. In the summer when they're plentiful, screw it, camp down in the valley, there's 2,000 buffalo around you, you stab a couple of them, we're good. But when it's a couple hundred buffalo, and we don't know where they're at all times, go camp on top of the cliff face. Hey, it's going to that same drinking spot 3 days in a row. Day 4, I'm going to be hiding in a bush next to where he's coming to drink. You know, there's definitely patterns that humans will follow for the animals, which of course the animals are following for, you know, their own food opportunities.
Their food chain, their water source. I think part of probably why they're up higher, I remember seeing something online. So if you have a valley, it's, I think if I got it correct, it's colder at the bottom.
Thermodynamics,
so I think that the sweet spot is in the middle. Okay.
Depends what you're doing. So if you're trying to, so like as a hunter, right? If there's a river flowing through, the wind will come through. It will suck from top to bottom down through. So I do not want to be higher than an animal, because the animal will scent me. At that point, I would want to be lower. Now, if it's a nice hot day and there's no river, the thermal heat rises. So if I'm lower than the animal, then the animal will scent me. So it depends on a couple of factors. But yeah, thermodynamics is definitely a thing if you're doing a backcountry hunt.
But to kind of go back to you know, the herbal stuff, I also think it's kind of important to have people assigned to those tasks, like that herbalist you were talking about, that can share that knowledge. That's why it's important to have a mag as well, because there's no way that I'm gonna remember everything in this book, and, you know, every single type of mushroom, and then end up eating the one that's not a shiitake and end up dead. But you know, I just recently had gotten a small herd of sheep, and Bender will tell you, I've text bombed him pictures of all the stuff in my pasture. Like, hey, is this bad? Can the sheep have this? And the thing is, he's knowledgeable about it because he's been through it. He's lost animals by certain plants that just grow that I would never have thought. Like, it's Florida, things just grow. The sheep are sheep, and they eat it, and it's devastating, a loss like that. It's important to have people, good brothers that and people in the mag that know that type of stuff. You know, who've experienced that type of loss. Like, oh, sheep died when it ate that, not good type stuff.
Yeah, and I would think, because probably May, maybe through October, because we get so much of our rain during those months, like our grass, especially during the summer. I mean, from like June to September, I mean, we got to mow our lawns at least weekly. Sometimes maybe, you know, 5 or 6 days. Otherwise, it's just depending on the grass and everything, how thick it gets. So the weeds, they grow faster. So the more rain we get, which brings more opportunity for the animals to get into some unhealthy business.
Well, also, some things are completely fine to eat some time of the year, and then poisonous other times of the year.
Oh, so, I didn't realize that. Okay.
So yeah, you get like prussic acid poisoning, and like what is it, Sudan grass, and I think sorghum.
I've heard that.
You get it as well. If there's a freeze, it gets a buildup of the prussic acid, and it will kill cattle and livestock. Now that's not typically something that grows wild. Now I know there's a handful of plants that do, like, they'll build up those toxicities after a good freeze. And then simple things like, even for us, like potatoes. If you have a potato that breaks the surface and gets a bunch of sunlight, it'll turn green. You get the selenium poisoning, or not selenium, solenoid. I can't remember what it is, but you get a grain can kill you.
I'm talking about cyanide, are you?
No,
okay.
It's
but solenoid poisoning sounds right to me, but it's also not something that I'm as familiar with. So
yeah, I think it's solenoid or solanine or something like that. And
well, you know what?
It's an environmental factor that happens.
Yeah.
That's if you've ever read the book, what was it, Into the Wild?
Yes.
Stanless.
Yeah.
He ate wild potato seeds.
Yeah.
It's solanine.
Solanine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But he ate wild potato seeds, and he ended up getting that solanine poisoning. And so he was eating, but his body couldn't retain the nutrients. So he had essentially just mummified himself. And it was, wow. Yeah,
and that's so crazy. That man went through so many hardships for that, and then that's how you go down.
And the French fry killed him.
Yeah. Well, shout out to our latest person joining, Sun EP87, whoever you are, comes up with a quick answer. Thank you very much. Very timely. I was wondering with certain plants, whether it's stuff that we grow in the garden for flowers or for food, I wonder if something has the potential to become poisonous to certain creatures when it starts to flower or to bud or right after. I didn't even think about them freezing, which would change the plant's chemistry because it's going to react to save itself, make itself dormant or whatever. So that's pretty interesting too.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, that was something I found. So with like the Sudan grasses and like the sorghum hybrids, I was going to plant my pasture for my cattle with that, and I wanted a quick growing thing. And that's the thing that sucks is all of the like hyper fast growing grasses will get that prussic acid poisoning. So then you're kind of like, okay, now I'm going to have to plant an annual rather than a perennial because you don't want that buildup in the soil. You can go in and you can cut everything down to avoid that. And it's Florida, we really don't get a freeze, but that's kind of what scared me is like, if we're up north and we get a freeze, you got a freeze.
Yeah.
So then you just get them out of that area. And Florida is like, well, did it happen? Did it not happen? And I don't want to walk outside to, a bunch of dead ungulates and be like, took a risk.
We got a couple shout outs here. First off, we have Mountain Natural Prep Station joining us. Nana. All right. Thanks for joining us. And then our boy Joe. I'm thinking if it's the Joe we think it is, if you see sorghum, you need to wait for it to get up to about 18 to 24 inches to avoid the prussic acid. Okay. Oh, it's our Joe. All right. Thanks for joining, Joe. That's awesome. Yeah. Gosh, I'm trying.
Yeah, Joe was actually, I think, the one who taught me about the acid poisoning.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, because I had mentioned, I'm going to seed with this, and then he was like, "Hey, don't do that."
Get ready to be out there with a ruler.
Right.
Oh yeah, Joe's definitely one of those go-to guys. Very knowledgeable.
Yes. That's the one I was telling you needed to get a hold of.
Oh, what's up, Joe? I need to get a hold of you.
Oh yeah, and he makes some pretty good banana pudding at the potlucks. So, oh man, that's cool. Yeah, you got anything else on that topic, Aaron?
I sent you a link to a guy. He used to do classes locally, and looks like he still is. Green Dean. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all.
No.
He came out with a book called Eat the Weeds and everything else too, but he had a really cool class format where you could follow him along doing woods walks, and he would do them in different regions of the state in different seasons. so that you can learn to identify this plant that might, it might be a sprig sticking that far up in the spring, and then just be, a dead plant, on the top, but then you might have this tuber that can feed your entire family if you know how to, get it out and process it and everything. And, that was pretty cool. I was actually set up to do one of his woods walks, and then I had to cancel last minute. So I'm still bummed about that, but I'll just take that instead of one of my 9,000 tactical classes I've been to, and all good.
But those kind of things are very popular. I'm telling you, one of the best activities, I was mentioning earlier with Brendan, people loved going on those edible walks and stuff. And I've thought from time to time, would it be worth trying to set up some, edible walks in some of the different trails in Central Florida? But I wonder if elevation makes a big difference one way or another for these things, because if you're up near, in Hernando County, okay, up there's Croom, there's a trailhead that branches off to 3 different trails. It's in Brooksville, Croom area. And I went to the day use there, and I think I did when I hosted a Central Florida hike. We did about 6.5 miles, 7 miles. And that was the most elevation I've seen in Florida on a trail. But I wonder if anybody could chime in on that, because we're kind of flat over here in the Hillsborough Pasco area.
Yeah.
And Hernando and Citrus have much more elevation. And plus, when you go inside Florida towards Orange County in this more central part, have you guys ever been out on trails like that, doing any kind of, hiking or edible walks where there was distinctly different ecosystems where stuff was growing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, for instance, there's a lot of edibles that grow around different trees. So, for instance, like in my neck of the woods, where it's mostly oak, hammocks, and swamp, I will not find any wild blueberries. There's not a high enough pH. But you can go out to like Hillsborough State Park, where there's a bunch of planted pines, and the pine needles build up that acidity in the ground, and you can find wild blueberries all over Hillsborough State Park.
Oh, wow, it is.
Yeah, it's the acidity in the ground.
No kidding.
Yeah, so just different little things like that. So plants are definitely dependent on other plants just by pH balance of the soil.
Yeah.
One of the things when I was up north a few months ago up in Kentucky, I was talking with a guy. We were collecting mullein on the side of the hill, and he was pointing out that you generally don't find mullein on flat ground. It's usually on a pretty steep hill or embankment. It likes that water to run over it. It doesn't like to sit in water.
Okay.
And there was a couple of plants he had pointed out that they prefer the hillside versus the flat ground, just because it likes that. It wants to be wet, it wants to be damp, but it can't sit in it. And it just seemed to prefer hills over flat ground.
So raised beds would probably do well for some of those type of things.
That's the preferred.
Yeah, if you're cultivating it yourself rather than trying to hunt it wild.
And so I see a comment from Dev. I've got a quick story about that. Blackberries, incredibly prevalent around here. But my wife and I decided, you know what, we want blackberries. So we went to Lowe's and bought a bunch of blackberries. And wouldn't you know, none of them made it. All of them died within just a few months. Didn't matter how much tender love and care you gave them, they died immediately. We walk maybe 75 feet in the other direction. We have a canal kind of by our house, all wild blackberries. And so it's kind of important. There are things that grow here in its Florida equivalent. Like grapes are kind of hard to do. Somewhat hard to do here. I've seen it done, but we have muscadine. Muscadine grows everywhere, and those grapes are absolutely amazing. So just growing the Florida equivalent, like tomatoes. Tomatoes are difficult to grow down here too. Well, there's the Florida Dade tomato and the Everglades tomato that are prolific here. That'll grow really, really well. So finding that that Florida alternative, if you will. And the blackberries are just as good. I mean, if you get stabbed, it sucks. You told me because it's a barb. Like
blackberry?
Like when you get stabbed, you feel it like 2 hours later. Apparently,
it's a barbed thorn.
The barbed thorn, yeah.
Oh, really? Now,
like a microscopic.
Yeah.
okay. Now, is that unique to blackberries, or is like raspberries and blueberries like that as well? Because they're all like bush
cultivated. Well, cultivated blackberries are generally thornless. Mm-hmm. They've been, bred's not the right word, but cultivated,
genetically modified. Yeah,
to be thornless, and a lot of your ones that you're going to buy at a nursery or a garden center are going to be thornless. Where the wild counterpart almost always has thorns. Mountain natural prep. So I have blueberries, blackberries, wineberries, something like wild blueberries or huckleberry. So one thing that we have all over Florida is the elderberries, which grow everywhere. They scare the hell out of me because the plant is almost identical to hemlock.
Yeah.
And the only way you can tell is when they're covered in berries. So, Aaron was talking about like identifying the plant in different seasons. And Dom, you and I have had this one of the last couple woods walks we did. It was up in Starkey, and every time we went through Starkey, you always had me point out the American Beautyberry.
Yep.
And the last time I watched you look for it, and you couldn't find it, and you said it was cut down. I was like, it wasn't cut down. It was just a stalk because it loses all its leaves and all its berries in the winter. And but yeah, being able to identify that plant at different times of the year, kudzu, right? Kudzu is a weed. Everybody hates it. It grows these massive tubers that you can boil and use for starch or turn into a flour that cultures all over Southeast Asia use as a flour substitute, But to us, it's just an annoying weed that kills everything, you know? But it's everywhere. It's super prolific.
Yeah. We all can't have a Brendan, okay, to sit there and be with us on the wood walks and stuff like that. But there are things out there that are pretty useful to help. I know I bought a book for one of my daughters, hoping that she'd get interested in it, because one of my daughters loves to go on hikes with me because she just loves to spend time with me. My other daughters, if they got friends there, then they'll go. So I bought one of my twins a book on, and I got the recommendation from Joe. I'm like, what's a good book? It's got pictures with color and stuff like that, and to see if she get interested. She looked at it a little bit and then put it down, but it's a good reference. But even more so, I'm sure there are several apps out there for free that you can go and just use your phone and take pictures. So if you don't have a Brendan,
Plant Snap.
What's it called?
So I use one called Plant Snap.
Plant Snap.
SNAP. And you can take pictures of fruit, leaves, bark, and something else. And it will give you a list of plants. And I've fact checked it with a bunch of plants that I'm already aware of. Mm-hmm. And so it'll give you several varieties because there's a bunch of plants that are similar, right? So like if you take a picture of a cucumber leaf, it's going to say this could be a cucumber or a squash or a pumpkin because they've all got essentially an identical leaf. It'll give you 3 or 4. So I fact checked it with a couple of plants that I already could identify. And I have found that to be reliably accurate enough that I trust it on edibles. Mm-hmm. And it's just a free app that, like I said, it's just a matter of take a picture of the leaf and it'll ask you, is this the leaf? Is this the bark? Is this fruit? Is this a flower? That was the other one.
Yeah.
And that was another thing I do. So if you took a picture of the leaf and it gave you like, it could be one of these 3 things. Okay, then fact check it with the bark. If it says now it's only one of those original 3, chances are it's probably that. But there's tons of apps that have pretty good recognition.
Yeah.
I think Joe had mentioned this. Let's see. It comes included with an iPhone. You just take a picture, and when you examine the picture, you'll have the option to look up the plant. That's pretty cool. You know, it made me think of a cool idea for people with kids. Okay, you can do this with adults too. So, for a couple years in a row, I would sit there and organize hikes at the end of the school year with a bunch of my, teacher friends. So they'd bring their kids out, and we go do a hike at Starkey, and came up with like a little bingo card thing. So this is a great way to you make a game. Hey, whoever could find the most different plants, you get prizes. If you find 8, you get this much.
So
Everyone
FWC
can get
did
something, huh?
FWC, I can't remember what it's called, but they would do a scavenger hunt where they would post on their website, go find animal tracks, go to any of the WMAs, and then the winner got a prize. They did it 1 year, and we get lost.
No, I was just looking. I was looking at time. That's why if I start going somewhere, it's just because I'm.
Oh no, our screen had started buffering.
Okay.
Right. So FWC there for a bit, they posted like 20 different things, and they called it a scavenger hunt. And you would go out to any of the WMAs, take a picture of that, and upload it. And so it was something that me, the wife, and kids ran out like 3 days in a row, and it was like find animal tracks, find an insect, take a picture of an osprey, take a picture of a squirrel. Can you identify an edible plant? They gave you a list of like 20 things to do on the scavenger hunt, and as long as you took the picture inside the WMA, it counted. And
that is so cool.
I recall correctly, we were the first ones to complete it, but the prize was a random drawing. It was more of a raffle than it was winning.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I'm competitive, so I was ticked off about it, but the kids loved it. So they got to run around in the woods for 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
So one thing that kids are way more excited about than us is like we sat down to have a picnic, and they're like, hey, we found an insect to take a picture of. And it was my daughter covered in ticks.
Oh, my God.
Like, yeah, no, not ones we want to find.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I know one time it was on one of those hikes, and everyone was taking a break. I'm like, all right, give me a second. And I went over to handle some business over to the side, and I go and I find the tree. And then something made me feel uneasy, and I look up, and there's this massive, like, wasp or hornet nest. It wasn't even just bees. And I was like, slowly back away.
Oh, yeah.
And, I generally stay on the trail. This is at Starkey. But I've been to Starkey so many times. I mean, whether it's at daytime or nighttime and stuff, I pretty know anything that's 4 miles or less on the loop off the backbone. I've probably been on 50 times. We know exactly where all the sand is. Now, normally having sand on a trail really is annoying. Okay. But at Starkey, it's there for a reason. It's purposeful. Because when Starkey, if I'm correct, when Starkey was created, I think it was with the Audubon Society. It's like one of those environmental type organizations. They helped design Starkey, a wilderness preserve, when it was created. So there's different ecosystems within the park. And so towards the beginning on the main trail, I call it the spine, there's a bunch of sand. It's because there's a bunch of turtles or tortoises that live there. So usually there's a couple of holes there, and we'd go and we look at the turtles and take pictures, and then they go hide. We knew where all the boars would go and root on the sides on certain parts of the trails. And you can see which parts of the trails are maintained. They have bird viewing trails They have a bird viewing little deck cabana or bird blind, it's called. And which I'd never seen one before right before I went to Starkey. And you go there and it's just like a dock sort of. And it's almost a whole wooden wall with some like rectangular slots in it. So you can, look at birds out there. Now the water levels are so drastic depending on the time of year.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any gators there or not. I've never seen any, but I don't know what.
They're there. It's Florida, man. They're
there. Soon. Probably just as
soon. Had a checklist to see if there's gators in the water. Is there water?
Yeah.
But so Dom's like, me, I'm an off trail kind of guy. And,
yeah.
As my daughter has taught your daughters, anything's a trail if you're brave enough.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, we're at was it Alderman?
Yeah, it was Alderman. Yeah.
And we're having a meetup, and Dom comes to me and is like, "Hey, my daughters and your daughter went off in the woods." I was like, "Okay, cool." And like 20 minutes later, he's like, "Hey, they're not back yet. I'm gonna walk the trail." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And like 10 minutes later, he comes running out. I was like, "They're not on the trail." We scattered. Had to been 24 adults.
Yeah.
All over the place. Finally, my daughter comes just skipping out through the woods, dragging his girls behind him. My kid found a hog trail and was like, "Oh yeah, that's a trail. Let's go." And convinced his daughters like it was an active trail when it clearly was a game trail. And my kid was like, "Oh yeah, I wanted to see if we saw anything."
And where the main, the route trail that we were on ends was a river.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
So I'm like, where could they go?
Huh?
Because the trail would go X amount and then it'd fork out. So if you went right, you ended up coming out on the paved portion. But if you went straight, it dead ended at the river. And I'm like, oh my God, now the worst things in my mind are going crazy. We ended up calling the park ranger. They pulled up in their golf carts. And by that time, that's when people were texting either me or Brendan and saying, oh, the girls are back. But I have to say, it was a true testament to the people that were there, because all the adults instantly, everyone was in action.
Started grabbing radios and everybody paired off. We're going down this trail. We're going. Yeah, no, it organized well.
That's awesome.
And it quickly turned into like I don't want to say search and rescue, because my kid was actively trying to not be found. So it was more of off board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids that can't go out for.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things along that line of thought, several of my buddies run hunting dogs, and they go out for hogs, and they get back into some pretty thick brush.
Mm.
They've used the radio frequency collars.
Satellite collars, yeah.
On those. So all I'm saying is that the frequency collars are adjustable, and you can get it really, really small if you need to. I'm just putting the idea out there. They're not that expensive. They're not hard to find.
But not too tight, or they won't be able to bark, so we can hear them.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking about for the daughters. My daughter does think she's a dog sometimes, so she barks. But I guess that's every kid goes through that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. I hope,
man.
right?
My son tries to race our dog on all fours, and I keep trying to explain to him, your muscle group and his muscle groups are very different. You won't beat him on 2 legs, let alone 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. But on a serious note, with all those people, instantly everybody, went into action. We had never drilled that, practiced that, talked about that. It's just people did it.
I was surprised how quickly everybody jumped. And that was a meet and greet. That wasn't like we did not train together as a cohesive group. Like a couple of us had done trainings together. Like you and I were familiar with each other. I had met Joe a few times. I believe Van was there. I met Van a few times, but it was as far as like a cohesive group, only 2 or 3 of us had ever done any actual training together, and everybody jumped and immediately fell into place, which really goes to show about like what is your personal standards, you know?
Right.
I've done a couple of trainings with Aaron, but that being said, I know he holds himself to a personal standard that I'm not concerned if something happens and Aaron's around. I know I don't have to babysit Aaron.
Yeah.
Same with Derek, same with you.
That's important.
You know,
that's very important.
You have to be able to. Yes, it's important to trust somebody, but it's also important to trust somebody's ability. I've got plenty of friends that I trust, but I don't necessarily trust their level of training and ability. And then vice versa. I know plenty of guys who I know they're capable, but can I leave them alone in a room with my wallet and my wife?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
and if I have to say it came down to a certain thing, it was probably just the mindset. And it's really adding on to what Brendan said, you know. I think because they were people in the space at one level or another.
Yeah.
You know, and there was no, if anyone was panicked, it was me. Okay. To whatever level that was. Okay. Because I was freaking out inside. I may not have showed it as much outside, but if anyone was showing panic, it was me. So,
well, you're a dad, right? So it's kind of, that's okay to freak out just a bit if your daughter can't be immediately located.
Well, see, I was okay because only one of my 4 kids disappeared, so I had extras. All the kids disappeared.
You know what they say: 2 is 1, 1 is none.
Well, you got in my family we call them the designated heir and the designated spare, and that can your role in life for the family can change depending on the favor that you find yourself in with really me on a given basis. So.
Yeah. Well, my oldest, like, she'll get upset about something because her sisters are getting away with something that she couldn't do at her age. And I was like, look, you're the starter kid. We didn't know nothing when it came to you. Okay. We learned on you. Now we're more relaxed. So it's nothing personal.
I get that the 20-year-old will come over and go, the 13-year-old gets to do this. You never let me do that.
That is funny to watch.
Yeah.
That is funny to watch.
I've never had a teenager before. What do you want?
My mother had a really good answer to that. She would just look at me anytime that I said something like that about my little brother, and she's like, "Oh, that's simple. I love him more than I love you." So
that's
my therapist said that
excuse for my kids. It's like, how come I never got that? How come I never got this Nana? And she's like, simple. I love them more.
Honesty is a good policy.
Oh man. So good. All right. There's one other topic I want to touch on. We're already at the hour mark, so this is a really good conversation. It's
gone quick, man.
Yeah. And the topic is very interesting and popular. We did a whole spectrum of, herbal medicine, edibles, how to gauge them, where to get them, and stuff like that. So that was great, and I'm sure we'll have more conversations about that in future episodes. But the next thing that I want to bring up is about live streams. And I was pretty 50-50 on live streams, and on our regular podcast, I've not really been a big fan of live streams because I don't consume live streams that much because, my time is limited, and, sometimes you're waiting 5, 10, 15 minutes into a live stream before they get the meat and potatoes. Like, they'll put a title on it saying, "Hey, we're going to talk about XYZ." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. I like this person. I like this topic." And you're seeing ice in a glass of whiskey, clanking around, and they're giving shout outs, and people are giving super chats, and it's all cool. It's popular. I'm not hating on it. It's just sometimes I find it hard to sit there and create content if I don't consume it, which is part of why we haven't done anything on TikTok yet, because we're still trying to figure out how do we make content for TikTok, because I don't consume TikTok that much. I mean, I'm doing it for research to kind of see how my idea of content would work in that environment.
Snakes and sparklers, man.
Yeah, literally.
What's that?
People with ADHD.
So
Yeah.
you remember Joe Dirt movie? Back
Yeah.
So he comes up to the fireworks salesman. What do you sell? Snakes and sparklers. Why? Where's everything else? Well, I only like snakes and sparklers, so that's all I sell. It's like, no, you got to get a little bit of something for everybody.
So, what I wanted to bring up is just like what you guys' thoughts were about this live stream in particular, but other live streams that you've either participated in or that you consume, and what you like or dislike. You know, what are some good things that you think we should try in the future? So, anyone want to start on that?
I will. I typically don't consume live streams. If I do, realistically, there's two people who I'll watch a live stream, and I know both of them personally. So it's usually just to interact with my brothers. That being said, one of them's a little random, and he usually live streams in the morning, like random times, I mean. And he usually live streams in the morning. So by that point, I'm either in the truck or I'm already at work. So I very rarely get to log on his. My other brother, he live streams same time every week, Friday evening at sunset. So that's a little more consistent for me, just because I know same time, same day, every week. So it's easier for me to get onto that. Now, again, I'm not typically a live stream guy, but it's a good way for me to interact with my friend. As far as other content for the channel goes, I did order a little bit of equipment, and I'm going to start. I know you and I have talked about doing not short form, but shorter form, where you do like bushcrafting tutorials, basic, how to make a fire, how to do this, how to do that,
some DIY and stuff.
Yeah, bushcraft.
Florida though, like it's building a fire here is different than Washington State. You know what I mean? Like it just totally.
And so that's another thing. Like if you're wandering through Florida and all you have is punkwood, you're gonna have a problem. The different kind of natural tinders you're gonna get in Florida. Are you trying to light a fire with dried oak leaves? Because that's gonna suck. But if you can find a cabbage palm and get the tuft out from underneath that, that's gonna light up if you look at it long enough. So there's definitely some Florida specifics. Florida's a weird one as far as like the rest of the US goes, because we are much more Southeast Asian, Caribbean islands-esque in our environment. In the sense of all aspects, super high humidity. We don't have a whole lot, that's one thing that like the rest of the nation, everyone's worried about water. You don't have to worry about water in Florida. Take 30 steps that way. And if you didn't hit water, cool, take another 30 steps, dig a hole 6 inches in the ground. You're going to get water. Yeah. We don't have that problem. But then you see guys like, oh, if I need to sharpen my knife, I'll get a rock. We ain't got a rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, you throw a rock in a fire and then drop the hot rock in your pot of water to instant boil. It's like, again, we don't have rocks. Like, that's not a thing here.
My favorite one's like cut down the 20 extremely straight logs basically to build your shelter. I've never seen a straight stick in Florida in my life. There's not.
If you get 3 foot of a straight
dude,
branch,
it's a miracle.
Yeah. I've seen pine trees grow with an S curve here.
Yeah.
But it's like, so I do want to start filming some more content like that. My content creator ambitions aren't high, but
you don't say. I mean, you might have to get a computer at some point, right? Like actually one that you own.
We were having that conversation.
Yeah, you do things with like.
So I got a TV for the first time in like 9 years, because when I was up north, I told a buddy of mine that I didn't have a TV, and so he bought me a TV to send home. And so now the kids have a TV. You know? But it's like, I am the youngest old guy you will ever meet. I am either way too young to be this old or way too old to be this young. I haven't decided yet. Like, I got a smartphone so my kid could play games on it.
Yeah.
That being said, like seriously, I don't own a computer. I don't own a laptop. I'm still in my 20s.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the tail end of 20s, but still, you know, it's like technology is not huge.
I don't even think you even own like a game console.
I bought a PlayStation 3 2 weeks ago.
Is that like 3 generations old?
It is, but when I was in high school, I had one and I played a video game on it that I was feeling really nostalgic. And my local GameStop had one for $100. I called him and asked him if they had one, and the guy laughed at me.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "I'll check in the back." And then like 5 minutes later, comes back on the phone and is like, "Dude, you're not gonna believe this. We have one." So yeah, I bought one for $100. And then the cool thing about PlayStation 3s are you can get 30 games for like $5 because nobody wants them anymore.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. What about you, Derek? You got anything to add on that?
I honestly, I think the live streams are awesome. I think really where they shine the most is when you are interacting with your community, like being able to see the comments and you know, in live to see the different perspectives and answers that people have. I think that's awesome. I think turning the lives into a podcast would be cool. So like you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So do your live and then turn it into a, you know, a replay crew, if you will, to steal a quote from a brother. I think that would probably be the best bet, just to kind of reach a broader audience. And then as far as your TikToks go, man, the move right now, it's all algorithm based, right? So the move right now is to take small clips from your live stream and or your podcast and put those on the TikTok. So for example, if you ask a question, Bender answers it, that small clip would be on TikTok. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
flooding it with that good nuggets of information.
Turn 1 hour into 21 minutes.
Exactly. Or even, you know, because most people that are on TikTok, man, they want that dopamine hit, so they don't want to sit there for 5 minutes. You know,
it's like a 20-second clip.
Exactly. They want that quick deal. So question, answer. Oh, cool. I didn't know that about mangoes and the poison sumac, you know, skin. That'd be good information to maybe have as a 20-second clip on your TikTok. So things like that, I think would be beneficial. And the thing that most content creators I don't think understand is it's very rare for you to be able to just post one video and all of a sudden you have 1.4 million views and then your view count, your subscriber count blows up. It's oftentimes you need hundreds of pieces of content that are there that shows consistency and it's relatively entertaining or informative before you start to truly hit traction. But I really like the Florida themed stuff because we are so different than everywhere else.
Yeah.
I was talking to Bender probably the other month or your daughter's birthday. Even fishing here is different. You can watch any of the big YouTube stars, the bass fishermen, and all of their rigs and the flipping and the flopping and all the special stuff, and none of it works here. It's a totally different. I don't know. Maybe the bass spoke to each other, and the bass here become better.
We don't have a whole lot of fast-moving water here, so that's a big thing with like up north when you have like elevation and flowing creeks. You know, like fly fishing and different lures. It's based on water that's moving, so things jump out real quick at it. We just don't have that because we're so flat.
Yeah.
Especially
The only
people have moved here, so yeah.
The only fishing I've done, I'm not really a fishing kind of guy. I went on 2 charters a couple of years ago, right after COVID, after we opened from COVID, and my buddy, he paid for the charter and stuff, and I just went to go hang out with him. And we had a captain, and You know, he'd bait everything, and I mean, we could do it ourselves. I mean, I could bait a hook and everything. But that was kind of cool. We went out into the bay, and he'd bring us all to the different spots where everything is gathering. I caught all kinds of fish, you know, and took a bunch of pictures and threw it back, and so it was fun. I think a lot of people go like on the Skyway or some of the bridges and sit around and stuff like that. So for me, the value, like just in fishing, would be if I'm getting to hang out with my buddies. But a lot of people like to go and not talk. Well, to me, like I would hike a lot because I go and I talk with my friends or the people on the hikes.
Gotta be quiet, man. The fish will hear you.
Yeah. So going hiking and not talking to people, you know, doesn't really sound as interesting. So the same thing with fishing, but some people really dig it. But yeah, you're right.
Freshwater, saltwater. I've caught about every fish you can in Florida on everything from nets to poles to a can with some string attached.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's added value too. It's like you know, a lot of times we're throwing back what we catch, but sometimes you take it home.
I don't catch and release. Everything goes in a frying pan. Even if I catch a fish that's too small, if I catch a bluegill that's this big, it's just going on a bass hook, and then I'm pulling in a 6-7 pound bass, and then I'm eating that. You know, it's
that's good eating.
There's a guy, Paul Rosalie. He lives down in the Amazon, and he talks about, you know, you can't find bait in the Amazon because it's just such a hyper competitive environment. So he will cut a piece of his callus off of his foot, and he'll use that to catch a little fish. And then he'll take that little fish and he'll use that to catch a piranha, and he'll use the piranha to catch a giant catfish and things like that. And I find that funny because that's how we grew up, is we would get little bread balls or, you know, whatever leftovers from our breakfast was, and then we would try and catch a bunch of 1 to 2 inch bluegill, and then we would hook the bluegill and throw them out live, and that's what we would use to go bass fishing with. And it just reminded me of my childhood doing that, where you'd start with a minnow and then get a bluegill, and then a bluegill or a worm or a bread ball, whatever, get a bluegill to get a bass to, you know, so on and so forth.
When I grew up, it was the old-fashioned way, man. Just find some worms.
Yeah. Good luck doing that here. That's another thing.
You can find them, and you can even do the little worm vibration thing. I don't know if you guys have ever done that right after it rains.
No, I don't think so.
Where you do like the worm harping. It's the vibrations go down into the earth, and they start squiggling up and coming to the surface.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's freaking it's spooky the first time you see it, but it's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, and Alex commented, bottle on a fishing string.
Yep, I've caught many fish on. I used to keep this. It was a little 1 liter Pepsi bottle, and then we'd wrap it up with, 20 foot of string or whatever, and then I would drop my weights and different size hooks inside, and you just spin it, throw it out there, and then just wrap it up.
Are you guys hearing any kind of like beeps or anything?
Yeah,
I just heard one. Yeah,
I have no idea what. Oh, I'm wondering if that's when the comments come. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Aaron, did you before we wrap up, is there anything you want to comment on?
I've been on a couple of the live streams in the past, and the biggest thing seems to be consistency over time for building a following. But that seems to be kind of similar to all social media or networking or any of that. It's just, the definition of content is actually just a reliable release schedule over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's not anything super fancy or anything like that. People want to make it into something that it's overcomplicated. And, you were talking about those people that have 1 million subscribers on TikTok. It's like, yeah, maybe they could get a video that goes viral, but more often it's probably several years of dedicated and deliberate work, keeping with, a content schedule that's like clockwork. Hey, I've taught my viewers that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there's a funny story about my daughter coming out. So they know that, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they can come over here and laugh a little bit. I echo the part about, staying Florida focused. There's so many unique things about Florida, and so much of the stuff when I was first starting out doing this stuff, like, it was such a pain in the freaking butt to be able to find content that would work in Florida.
Yeah.
And it was like you'd find all this stuff, and everybody'd be like, "Oh yeah, this is like 100% this will work," or I'd see a really cool skill set. Like they do it in other states. It's called noodling, where they stick their hand into dark holes in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they like have a fish bite on into it, and then they grab these giant freaking catfish that just sit there and basically don't move at all until something comes by, and then they move the bare minimum as possible. So they're huge.
You're gonna catch a really mad snapping turtle or an alligator here.
Dude, like the snapping turtles and the alligators aren't even what I'd worry about as much as like I have a thing about water moccasins. There are very few snakes that like I will go out of my way to end their freaking existence. But water moccasins, like I was chased by one when I was 6 years old in the water. And if you ever see them going like that, coming over and like, I'm bigger, I'm meaner now, large gun collection, and, a long memory. So that's like, I do not, I hate those friggin' things. So to me, that's always like any dark hole that I can't see into the back of has water moccasins in my head.
That is not a bad rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Well, I can still count to 10 without taking my shoes off. So I figure, that healthy bit of respect / fear has got some benefits to it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I'll tell that story later.
All right. Yeah, we had some great participation from people in the chat. Some people we know, some people I don't know who they are. They're on the different Facebook groups and stuff. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think I might have to unleash the AI on this episode when it's all said and done. Because when we end the stream, it'll be just like when we normally do a podcast. It'll sit there and process and blah, blah, blah. And then we'll post this out like we do a regular podcast. And I'll see if the AI will come up with something. So that's a good suggestion. So I'll see if the AI will do that work.
Real quick, well, since we're spitballing content.
Yeah.
And we've got everybody here.
Yeah.
What is something that, like, we can obviously do, like, Aaron can do a couple short combatives videos. I can do a bunch of bushcraft videos. Would you be willing to do combo videos?
We could do combo videos.
So I do think we should do. I really dig the podcast. I'm digging the live stream, which just to me feels like a more fluid podcast. Mm-hmm. But I do want to start throwing up, if we can, 2 or 3, 5 to 15 minute videos a week of just, hey, here's a quick whatever, and we can build on from there.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a bug out bag video. Mm-hmm. That being said, there's a reason everybody has a bug out bag video. People like to see it, Yeah.
And that's like prepper gang signs, man.
Right. I've seen a million of them, but you know what? If I hop on my freaking YouTube page tomorrow and some new person says, here's my bug out bag, I'm going to click it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always good ideas. I know what goes in them. Yeah. I've got one. I've had one for years. I've changed it up a dozen times, but you know, I watched one the other day. I'd never seen this chick before. She's a what do you call them? Through hiker. She does the Appalachian Trail regularly. Yeah. And
is that blonde girl?
Say again?
Is it a blonde girl? Well, there used to be a girl.
You're breaking up real bad.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So Wonderlust.
I think so.
Why have I heard that before?
And
She's the OG of the female through hikers. That girl has been through all the major trails.
So I just watched one of her videos where she broke down like an ultralight setup, which I kind of like. That's what I dig because I carry my bag a lot, so I want it to be as light as freaking possible. And now she's got me wanting to go spend $70 freaking on a bunch of this ultralight stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I probably shouldn't have watched the video at this point. But it's cool to have that. There's so much stuff that we don't even realize. I think there's a natural evolution. It's like when everyone gets in, what's the first thing we all do? It's all military surplus.
Yeah.
Because it's cheap and it's readily available. And it's rugged most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start getting into like the fancier camping gear, and then we get into the ultralight stuff, and
it's like a pendulum, dude. It goes, it just goes back. It's like the whole plate carrier versus chest rig debate / the H harness stuff. It's like, if you don't have a plate carrier, you're dead. Screw plate carriers, they'll get you killed. An H rig is it's just like back.
Well,
what I'm saying is we need 37 bug out bags, all at different sizes with different capabilities everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you never ever want to consolidate those, because if it's, this bag is for like your zombie apocalypse biker gang, you don't want to mix that up with your alien invasion response kit.
No.
Because then you won't have as many acronyms, and where would we all be without acronyms?
Yeah.
The military wants to hire you.
He needs an acronym for his acronym department.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. The bags are like the number one thing that gets consumed out there. Seems to be a never-ending desire for it. What I'd like to see more is people actually using the things in the bags in the videos.
That's a good point.
So, and I think that's a great way to go about it. And you keep such a light bag versus all the bags that are out there.
Well, I mean, it's like the last time we did one where I had broke down my kit. I can't remember who it was. It might have been you, Dom.
It was me, you, and Nate.
And you picked up my canteen cup. And my canteen cup is just like completely charred on the outside because it boils my water. It cooks my food. It does everything. And so I've got this just charred black cup, and one of y'all picked it up and was like, "Oh, I didn't know they make them in black." It's like, they don't. It's just, I'm not going to polish it every time I light a fire because it's, it's futility at that point. It's like my ferro rod, same thing. I showed, we ran into the guy at the HAP Summit, the guy who makes them.
Yeah.
And I pulled it out and I showed him, and there's a divot carved out of this ferro rod, and he started laughing. He was like, "Yeah, you put that thing to freaking use." I was like, that's what we're supposed to do. You won't find anything in my bag that's pristine other than the medical supplies.
Yeah,
Thankfully.
if your bag isn't dirty and worn out, you haven't been using it enough.
Oh, half the right side of my bag is staples because I pull the side out because it's a 10-year-old bag, and it's what I had handy. So I just took a stapler.
Yeah. Well, one of the cool things about that time was me, you, and Nate, and we were doing that. We're showing the bags and everything. And Nate had like these, I think we had Ziploc bags. He had it very organized.
Yes.
But oh my God, he had so many things, like everything you could possibly need for coffee and tea and matches.
His bag weighed more than mine, and he didn't have a drop of food.
Right.
It was all gear, and it was packed to the top. And he didn't have a way to boil water. So I had given him a canteen cup, And I remember he had to clip it to the outside because he did not have room in his bag for the canteen cup.
Yeah, because it was just the right amount. But, that day we sat there and I think, all right, so we collected water from somewhere on the property.
It was
and then
running the creek before my brother's house. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we made, what was it? Tea and broth out of it. Because hot water sucks.
Yep. And we were sampling that. So, I mean, to me, that's a simple, great example of, a piece of content, you got some camaraderie going on. You're actually using the tools, we're laughing at the stuff that some of us have, and seeing the holes, and we're helping each other out. So that's a good direction to go. So it's like, just do more of kind of what we already do.
Yeah. Well, and I feel that way in a lot of regards where I don't know how many times we've been sitting around and had a conversation like, damn, somebody should have recorded that, or like done something, and same thing, someone should have recorded that. You did something on that trip that I started instituting. You would carry these like foldable jugs, whatever you want to call them.
Oh, yeah.
Like 1 gallon fold flat jugs, and you would mark them, okay, this is clean water, this is dirty water. And at the time, I didn't carry a water filter because I just carried the single-walled container for boiling water. I've now added a water filter because it doesn't take much room. So I started instituting that. I got a couple of those fold flat bags that I keep in there just for the storage aspect of, yeah, it's Florida. We've got water everywhere. But, if I have 1 water bottle on me, do I want to be relegated to carrying 16 ounces of water? Or, hey, I'm at a creek. Let's fill a gallon so I don't have to stop, look for water every hour. Yeah.
That's where that stemmed from necessity and security. Okay. Because what was it? My first backpacking trip I did in Florida with my buddy Shane. And we went to the Big Green Swamp, and it was 8.5 miles in to the campsite and 8.5 miles out. Now we tried to mark where there was water, but I think on our way in, and there was a spot where, because they do hunting there, so they set up like some covered pavilion, small thing to process game when you'd hunt there during hunting season. And there might have been a water spigot there, but you never know if you can use that or not. And you don't know where you need it on the trail and stuff. Now, some sites would have a hand pump at the camping site that campsites are free, but they're way out in the woods. And sometimes the pumps work, sometimes they don't. I think the place where we were staying, the water was like a half a mile back up the trail. So we went to our site, dropped our gear. I grabbed a couple of those bags and brought them to the water, and I was filling up my dirty bags, and then I wanted to filter it back at the place for 2 reasons. 1, it's more comfortable to do it there. Okay. And 2, you don't know if gators in the water. I don't want to sit there with my life straw or my Sawyer Mini sucking water from there, and a gator comes and bites my head off,
Again, it comes back to the Florida stuff, man. It's the same thing. Like every field craft survival thing you watch, it's like, put this really ultra light tent on the ground and you'll be good. You can't do that in Florida. It does. No. It's a hammock or die.
Well, basically. And not only that, but on a not necessarily a dangerous level, like the alligator thing, that's a thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But also, if you're putting your face straight in a water source, it's Florida. You're going to have 37,000 mosquitoes on your face.
Yep.
Like that, where if you go take the jugs back to camp, you're good. Hopefully. Probably not.
And then Aaron's favorite creature, the water moccasin.
Yeah.
Hey, all I'm saying is if I see one, you're going to hear some loud noises. It might sound a lot like me swearing and a lot like a 9mm.
All right,
but,
as he's hanging off your nose and you're shooting or pulling out one of your knives.
I wasn't going to tell this story earlier, but I figure since the water moccasin came back up, I might as well. So on my property, I had this creek that cuts my property in half, and I had 2 logs that I had laid across it just as a little makeshift bridge. I'm crossing over it one day. There's a water moccasin that has nestled in between the 2 logs. Now, I'm crossing this thing over relatively fast because I've done it 100 times. I've got a rifle in my hands, and I see this thing jump into the water. Now, because I'm a man, I had the natural man reaction to scream like a 3-year-old girl and fall backwards into the creek. So now I'm in the water. My rifle is somewhere under the water, and there's a snake that I don't know where it's at. Go under the water, grab the rifle, get up. The snake comes out of the water, not like jumps out of the water, but like to the top of the water and starts heading toward me. I immediately randomly fire a shot at it. It goes back under the water, and I take off running.
That's scary.
It is not a joke when they say the water moccasins will chase you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was awesome.
Was it the AK?
No, it was a 22 Magnum bolt action.
Oh,
Let's see here. Let me check the notes real here quick. We shout out to let's see. All right. Oh no, that's the wrong one. And then all right. Give a last shout out to KK. Whoever that is.
what's up, KK?
Who's KK? Is that you?
I think that's my wife.
Oh. That's
So you
awesome.
should know who that is.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Very cool. All right. Very great conversation, guys. Loved all the interaction. I think we definitely do another live stream. Maybe the next episode we'll do another live stream instead of a regular podcast. We'll give that sound good to you guys?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's good.
Aaron, are we still down to butcher that cow on Sunday?
Yeah. Yep.
Sweet.
I've got some of my buddies lined up to come help, at least one. And my mom was also asking about doing a decent sized purchase of meat. So when she heard local animal like that I'm going to get to see knocked over and everything, she calls herself like a crunchy mom before there was crunch. That was a thing. So
Nice.
I had to grow up with that, but I love her. And I'm going to get her some, I'll probably bring you some cash or some meat for her. So
Granola's not that bad.
yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool that you guys are doing that. You know, for the audience, from time to time, different people in the network, they get together at, someone else's property that's going to cull some of their herd, so to speak. It's always interesting to do. You get to learn some skills. It's good to help out. It's great camaraderie. And that's the thing. One of the best things about being in preparedness is the camaraderie. It's the community. I mean, we're all a bunch of friends just doing stuff that's fun to us, whatever, and, building community at the same time. So
generally speaking, we're all into the same stuff if you're in this space, right?
Yeah.
So you already have the mutual bond there. And then going out and doing the things to train or better yourself or do whatever, do I need to learn how to butcher a cow? No, I've done it several times before. It's not a problem. If somebody else has never butchered an animal and they want to learn, hey, 2 birds, 1 stone, I'll butcher this cow because it needs to be done. You come watch and or assist. Now you learn, you get the knowledge. The last time, Dom, you didn't make to the last one, but we had 14 people out, and I had set it up to where we butcher the cow. I had Alex and I'm blanking. I see his face. The contractor.
Mike?
No.
Juan. Yes, Juan. Yeah.
So me, Alex, and Juan were doing all the butchery, and I had my son-in-law and a couple other guys taking the legs or large chunks of meat inside, and then all the women were inside dicing it up. We had I'm horrible with names. The guy who sells heavy equipment. He was manning the grill because Chris, yes.
Yeah.
So because that's one of the first things, like if we're butchering a cow, hey, you're getting on the grill. Here's a backstrap. Make this food.
Yeah.
You know? And that's just, if I'm butchering an animal, I am eating that animal while I'm still bloody. That's just how I am. You know, it's like it's the best time to eat it. You pay respect to the animal, and you get the satisfaction of your hard work taken care of. You know. So
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Alex is remembering. He's he wants you to keep him posted, I guess, on Sunday. So hopefully he'll be back in town. He can come back and help you out. But yeah, some of the great activities, you know, that people do. I always encourage people. I've had this conversation. My last point will be this. I had a conversation in one of the Facebook groups recently where I post different content, and got into a discussion with a guy. He put an article about mags and stuff like that. Because a lot of the mindset for people is don't have a mag, okay? Because people are going to know what you have, where you're at, and take your stuff. And I'm sitting there
nobody wants your can of soup.
Right. I mean, you can build
one can of soup.
Yeah, you can build community, okay? You don't sit there and tell them. You don't even got to invite them to your house. Hang out with them, okay? You know, multiple times to kind of see who their character is and just do activities. Well, it's like developing any other kind of friendship.
So on that note, right? All right, let's take like the strictest OPSEC we can, right? So what's the things that I want to protect? For me, my wife, my children, my food supply for my wife and children. So, okay, if I don't want anyone to come to my house or know what I have to protect my food supply for my wife and my kids, okay, well, I have to sleep sometime. So is it more valuable for me to not have people to guard my food supply, or is it more valuable to, hey, Aaron, I'm going to give you 2 pounds of rice. I need you to make sure nobody burns my house down while I sleep. Mm-hmm. You know, we live in a time of plenty. So if I can spend an extra $20, you know, if we say 2 pounds of grain per person per day to sustain your caloric intake, between corn, rice, and beans, you know, 50-pound bag of rice is what, $23 ish. Yeah. You know, 50-pound bag of corn is $10. So we can get, you know, an entire year's worth of food for like $500. It's not that hard. Which, yeah, $500 by itself is a lot, but if you're breaking it up to, that's what, $30 a month, $35 a month. Mm-hmm. If I can put
about $60
yeah,
I
don't know. So if I can put away $50-$60 a month, and boom, that's 1 year supply for one person. Now I can call Aaron and go, well, if it's to the point where we're guarding, I doubt I'm calling, but
yeah,
close enough, I'll pick them up.
Carrier pigeons.
Sending up the flare gun.
Right.
Yes. I'll probably be around in that case.
I have a feeling, but you know, it's more valuable to me. Like, I don't know how many times where I've seen, like, I've talked with people and it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to do this. What, you know, I'm going down the street and I'm gonna shoot that farmer's cow. And it's like, okay, you're planning on thievery now, so that means I can't trust your judgment now. We live in a time of plenty. I've always said, if I get to the point to where I have to steal to feed my wife and kids, I fucked up as a man several times before I got to that point. Now, there's a bunch of extenuating circumstances that could happen. I can have all the food in the world. We saw this with Milton last year. Mm-hmm. I had a very decent food supply put away. half of it got washed all over a 4-mile radius. I'm sorry, quarter-mile radius. I don't know why I said 4, but I lost like 50% of my food storage, my dry grain food storage, because it floated away. I physically lost a lot of it, and then did get some water penetration with some because I experimented with being lazy and not properly storing it, and told myself I'd get to it eventually because no one was expecting 4 foot of water. Well, guess what? You know what's going to happen? The thing you don't prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I did not prepare for 4 foot of water to come. You know what happened? 4 foot of water came and filled 55-gallon drums full of water.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that, extenuating circumstances happen, but we just need to pivot. So I got the 4 foot of water and I had all that problem. What did I do? I called Brothers and immediately had people. Dom, you showed up to my place. Derek showed up to my place. I had 5 guys from. No, I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 guys from between Oklahoma and Tennessee show up to my house with a 1-week notice. Yep. Hey, I need help. Half of those guys I didn't even know were coming. They just showed up. And I did not know some of these people I am very close with.
Yeah.
A couple of these guys, I knew them from grindstone deployments. I didn't know them on a personal level.
Right.
But they showed up just because they've seen me do good works, so they wanted to do good works.
Yep.
And it was that point that I had a conversation with one of them that kind of got me emotional, because when Helene hit, I went up to his hometown. And when I kind of felt undeserving of it, it was dude, you showed up to my place. Why wouldn't I show up to your place?
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that we need that FaceTime with each other. Like I said, it's one of those things that, if I know so-and-so's a Green Beret, medic, surgeon, secret squirrel, that's a really cool guy to know. However, if I haven't FaceTimed with him, I would rather have Dom or Derek or Aaron than the super secret squirrel guy, because I can't trust the super secret squirrel guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the whole Helene Milton thing was such a great case study in community, because you were over there volunteering. The second storm's coming. You had to come back, evacuate your family. You go. After the storm, your property's all jacked up. We had to sit there. You lost a lot of your tools, a lot of your food supply, your tools, because you have your own business. And, we came together. Everyone came together and was helping out in one way or another. I know some people were going to the property helping DJ while you're out working.
Yep.
Other people were lending you tools or giving you tools and stuff like that, and then the grindstone deployment, and shoot, I remember, if I'm correct, wasn't Alex out there helping you tarp your dad's roof?
Yeah. So before I could even get to I couldn't get into my house without a canoe. And I had mentioned that my dad's roof had been taken off. Alex called me up and the next morning was at my house at 6 a.m. was like, I got a truck bed full of tarps and some nails. Let's go. And I mean, he lives a couple hours from me.
And that's a great point.
And I didn't ask. It was no, I want to help you.
Yeah. See, that's Alex's nature. And this is one of the things I love about Alex, is because, let me tell you, he lives the farthest from anyone in the network. Okay. And he drives to the events. Doesn't matter where we're having them. Okay. He's engaged, always thankful to be there and stuff, willing to help out, funny, friendly, and stuff like that. And then in the times of need, boom, he's not waiting to be asked. He's just offering it up, and I think that's pretty awesome.
It goes back to that mindset thing you were talking about, Dom, and to the point you made earlier on the Telegram is, you got to have the FaceTime, man. A lot of people in the group that don't show up. I think you're really missing out, and I really think that it's important. We all we're all not social butterflies. I totally get that, but you have to put some face time on people. You have to get to know them face to face. You have to. Your skill set will fit in somewhere. I promise you that, and really kind of it makes the group more cohesive, and I think it allows us to broaden our horizons when it comes to disasters like Milton was, where we can get together as more than just a mag, if you will, more than just a group, and really help each other out. And when terrible things like that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Show up.
All right, we are at 1:55, so I know we can go 2 more hours, but let's see. Well, let's close this out. Got 2 announcements before we do. We have 2 activities coming up. We have one coming up Sunday, July 27th, and that is going to be wilderness first aid and some self-defense / security.
Aaron's gonna beat people up for fun.
Yeah.
It's always fun when I get to beat people up. I don't like getting beaten as much, but man, I do enjoy beating on.
He's going to do all those moves on himself. Okay.
Well, the other night you were saying you were volunteering to be my demo buddy. What happened, man?
I got to make sure the potluck is all set up. And,
He'll be filming.
Yeah. Got to taste test all the food,
Yeah, and I got a special mentor coming to lead the way. Actually, 2 mentors for the medical. So Nancy's going to do snake bites presentation, and then we got Phil who's going to come and do wilderness first aid. So Phil's yes. Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then the event after that is part 2 of the series, and that'll be Sunday, August 17th. And that is going to be wilderness skills. Brendan is going to be the main mentor there. And we're going to have a knots demonstration as the small part of that. I'm going to try to get another knots person to help complement because you're doing so much of the other stuff.
The big one for knots. So I'm gonna do a, I don't want to say permanent, but permanent camp. I'll set one up for if I was going to camp at one location for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so a few of the knots I'll show with that, like your obvious ones, bowling and things like that, trucker's hitch, but like the tensioning knots, those are the most useful for setting up camps like that. So like if you're doing an A-frame tarp shelter, tying 2 knots around a tree and now it's sagged in the middle, that sucks. But if you can learn a simple tensioning knot and just slide it down and tighten everything up, it's super useful. Like I said, I only really use 2 or 3 knots, but it's really all you need. And then I'm going to do an expedient all right, we need to make camp in an hour and it needs to be able to be broken down and no appearance of my presence in 5 minutes or less. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's going to be very cool. I got a 10x10 tarp shelter tarp, like a real one of the good ones. I only used it once for a demo when I was up at Joe's house, and it's been in my bucket waiting to be used again. You can see I don't know any knots. Joe was doing all the knots when we were playing with it. So and the second part of that, if I can make that happen, is going to be communications. I'm still trying to find my idea would be that we get some radio guys to come out with actual GMRS repeaters, like mobile ones, come plop them out on the property and have a couple of live nets using those repeaters and have people bring their radios. Maybe we'll do some programming or whatever and actually do a live net so people can see the value in it. Maybe some start, maybe some Meshtastic, demos. This depends on who's available or what have you. But yeah, so 2 exciting events. Those would be the last 2 big events as we roll in. We're in the middle of hurricane season, so we'll have smaller stuff in the podcast, obviously. But those will be our last two big meetups. So if you were waiting for, I'll go to the next one, these are going to be your last two chances until the hurricanes are done. All right.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you very much for joining our first live podcast or stream. It was a lot of fun. Look forward to doing more with you all. Please, if you have not already, please like the video and subscribe. Subscribing, it makes it easier for you to get notified when we have content going out, especially the live streams now. So, and please let us know any comments about anything about the podcast. Throw it in the comment section. On YouTube or email me. And we'll be good to go. Thanks again, everybody. Hope you guys all have a great week, and we will see you next time.